to quote somebody also quite famous, it's no, it isn't the beginning of the end, but it might turn out to be the end of the beginning. This is the first phase of the war. The Ukrainians, first of all, they resisted being conquered completely. And now they've proved that they can beat the Russians on an open battlefield, which they've done. And this is the first time, in my estimation, the Russians have been beaten on an open battlefield like this since December 1942. So that's a pretty big moment. And the humiliation of it, believe me, goes deep into Russian military circles. But the Russians won't give up. Putin is very determined that this war will go on. And so he's looking at ways of increasing what we've begun to call crypto mobilization. He won't yet declare full mobilization, though in due course he might. But at the moment, he's undergoing a process of crypto mobilization, which is like, as you were speaking with your last guest, Prigozhin of the Wagner Group, trying to get people in prison to sign up.
Yeah.
They're scraping the barrel everywhere they can to increase their numbers.
What is the impact of that, do you think? I mean, I asked about the likelihood of greater atrocities, if that's possible to contemplate, because of the kind of prisoners that, because of the kind of recruits that are now being put into the front line.
Yeah, it's an absolute certainty. I mean, what Prigozhin said, and which this is all on video now. We've all seen it. It's gone live, and it's absolutely genuine. He makes a speech to them. It's like something out of the Dirty Dozen. Yeah. He says the only way you'll get out of this place is if God lets you out, and then you'll be in a box. But if you join up, you'll get out today. You'll get out today, and you sign up for 6 months. And he said, and we'll put you on the front line, and we do all the dirty jobs, so you might get killed. And if you disobey an order or try and desert, we will shoot you without question. But if you're still alive at the end of 6 months, we'll let you free and you can go home without a stain on your character. So these people are being recruited to be quite suicidal and take their chances of still being alive at the end of 6 months. I mean, they will be the worst sort of soldiers. And in a way, they won't make any strategic difference because you can't fit these sort of brigands into a proper combined arms strategy with professional soldiers. But undoubtedly, they will do a lot of harm and damage in the areas that they go to. And remember, Prigozhin himself, the commander of this Wagner Group, who've already got about 10,000 convicts serving with the Wagner Group, he did 9 years in prison for robbery before he ever knew Putin. So he himself knows what it is like to be in a Russian prison.
Well, all of that is a terrifying prospect, clearly. When the counteroffensive began, there were also fears that Russia might lash out, for example, by using battlefield nuclear weapons. Have those fears, those specific fears, receded or not?
I don't think they've grown very much for two main reasons. One is that it's very hard to imagine how the Russians could use battlefield nuclear weapons to any effect. You can only use them against concentrations of troops because they're vulnerable when they concentrate. But what the Ukrainians have done is what we are now trying to train ourselves to do in Western armies, and they've actually gone and done it, which is to keep all their forces dispersed in division sizes, dispersed as a division, and then come together as a division very quickly in order to make the breakthrough. So they're not providing any easy targets by massing and getting ready for an offensive that takes 2 or 3 weeks, where you can see where the opposition is getting ready to break through. They're just not doing that. So a tactical nuclear weapon wouldn't be much use. And the other reason that I think it's pretty unlikely at the moment, and it's still, it's a bizarre scenario, is that to cross the nuclear threshold, even with a small nuclear weapon, I think would turn even China against President Putin, and it would put Russia absolutely as the absolute pariah of the 21st century. And indeed, he might not even survive in the Kremlin if he were to do that. So I think you can never be sure. In warfare, everything is very unpredictable. But I still think that's a very long. It's quite a long way away before we get to that. Much more likely is that the Russians will start to hit civilian targets more frequently in Ukraine. They're already trying to hit critical national infrastructure. They'll probably launch big cyber attacks. They will certainly try lots of other things, but I think nuclear is still off the table.
And that brings us to today's horrifying evidence coming out of Izium. I want to ask about the prospect of bringing the perpetrators to justice. The International Court of Justice could, of course, rule against Russia, but the UN Security Council would have to enforce that, as I understand it. And Russia is one of the Council's 5 permanent members. So does that make it very difficult, do you think, to get justice for people and their families?
Well, yes and no. The UN has already pronounced, the Permanent Court of Justice has already pronounced that this is an illegal invasion, but that can only pronounce on state-to-state things. Individual acts are covered by the International Criminal Court sitting in The Hague, and Ukraine isn't a member of the ICC. Neither is Russia, neither is America. Very foolish of Ukraine not to join. However, the Ukrainians did say at the very beginning of this conflict that they choose to recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. So what that means is that any war crimes actually committed on Ukrainian territory, even if they're committed by Russians who are not party to the thing, can be investigated. So yes, the ICC can get involved. As we stand, the last figure I saw was about 2,800 live investigations, which the Ukrainians are keeping up with. And unlike any other war, this is the first war I've known in which war crimes have been as it were, highlighted from day one.
Yeah.
And there is evidence. I mean, because of the social media, because of the ability of camera phones and other documents and so on, other things that can be brought together very quickly, the evidence is there. And, it usually takes 20 odd years for perpetrators to be brought to justice. If you look at Africa, look at the former Yugoslavia, it's somewhere between 10 and 20 years. So the wheels of justice grind very, very slowly, but they do grind, they do turn.
Yeah. And now there's the evidence.
Just naming people, saying, look, there's an indictment against you, this person, this sergeant, this lieutenant, whoever it might be, means that they can't travel anywhere in the world outside Russia without the danger of being arrested.
Right.